Here we are.
I called the special meeting to order of the Marlington Local School District Board of Education on May 11th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to
the
the
flag
flag
of the United
States of America,
America,
and to the
and to the
republic
republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty and justice for all.
The reading of the mission statement will be by Mrs. Stevens.
In collaboration with staff, parents, and students, Marlington Local School District will develop lifelong learners who understand and apply knowledge and demonstrate excellence in pursuing the highest standards with effective intervention to challenge every student.
Thank you. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Mrs. Bruger, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gabrick,
Here.
Mr. Hagan,
Here.
Mrs. Humphries,
Here,
Dr. Mason,
Here.
Mrs. Stevens.
Here.
Adoption of the meeting agenda. Are there any corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion that the Marlington Local Board of Education adopt the following agenda for the May 11th, 2020 special meeting?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes?
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
yes,
Dr. Mason,
No.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 4-1.
Under new business, is there a motion to approve the elementary attendance zones resolution as presented and marked Exhibit CC?
So moved.
Second.
I'll go ahead and read that resolution. The 3 elementary school zones for Lexington, Marlboro, and Washington Elementary Schools for the 2020-2021 school year and beyond shall be the same elementary school attendance zones that existed for Lexington, Marlboro, and Washington Elementary School zones for the 2018-2019 school year until such a time as such elementary school attendance zones may be revised by the Marlington Local School District Board of Education pursuant to a duly adopted board resolution at a future board meeting. A true and accurate copy of the elementary school attendance zones for the 2018-19 school year is attached hereto and incorporated herein as Exhibit A. A true and accurate copy of the elementary school zones for the 2020-21 school year is attached hereto and incorporated herein as Exhibit B. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to know, are we opening up intra-district open enrollment for the affected students in this?
Yeah, Dr. Mason, that answer is yes. And maybe if you don't mind, can I just maybe kind of summarize what group of kids that would affect as well? Okay. So based on the resolution that's on the agenda tonight, nothing will change with any of the Marlboro kids at all. So all the parents and kiddos that got their letter to Marlboro, nothing changes there. This is the group of kids from Beeson South to State Street. Okay. Those kids were assigned Washington by me already. Based on the resolution tonight, those kids from Beeson to State Street are going to go north now up to Lexington. So Dr. Mason's question is valid. My thoughts are, I have a letter ready to go out tomorrow. Once the board approves this, saying you've been reassigned, there's about 53 kids. along with the option of if they don't like that assignment, just like in the past, they are allowed to apply for intra-district open enrollment. And my thoughts, Dr. Mason, were allow 1 week for parents to respond to that as well.
Suggested, or why are we doing this? I know that this wasn't your recommendation, Mr. Knoll, because you already set those lines. So why was this suggested? And how many students does this affect?
What was that last question?
How many students
Joe,
does this
Joe,
affect?
could you answer? She asked how many students that affected?
It was 53, correct?
About 53 kids.
53.
Yeah.
Okay, so the attendance zones are set pursuant to board policy, which is 5120, which says that the Board of Education directs the assignment of students to the schools within the district. So the Board of Education is required by board policy 5120 and also by Ohio Revised Code to set the attendance zones for each elementary school. And additionally, it is to be set on a reasonable and a rational basis. So since we're just 1 year past where they were in 2018-19, it seems very reasonable to reverse back to that, to those attendance zones.
What will this do for attendance in the schools, Mr. Knoll?
I'm sorry, attendance.
Can you repeat that, Karen?
Numbers. What will this do for the attendance numbers in the school? In Washington and Lexington, since those are the two being affected.
Yeah, so basically what's going to happen, we've got 53 kids that we're going to take from Washington. So we're going to decrease that by 53, and they're going to be added on to Lexington. So the numbers that I'd shared with you a couple of weeks are going to obviously be a little bit different. So as we have kind of worked through this process, trying to get ready, the numbers look something like this. At Lexington, the numbers are going to go up to 331 plus another 60 for preschoolish, like I told you. So they're going to be up to about 400. Marlboro stays the same, like I said, 182, nothing changes there. And Washington goes down to 247. Is what that would look like. Now, that's without any intra-district transferring, down the road. That's if everything just kind of stayed in place right now. That's what it would look like.
So will that affect the teachers, any amount of teachers anywhere? Do you have, well, you do, I know we don't have the final numbers, but.
Yeah. And I expressed this already. I am a little concerned about those numbers that have gone up. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I made the recommendation that I did. One of the things that we can control is how many kids are going to each building, and which in turn helps with class size, which you guys know I'm pretty animate about. There's a couple grades that I am concerned, to be very honest with you. The numbers are extremely high right now, but depending on how things play out, there's obviously some options on that changing, but some initial concerns.
What are the current grades that you're concerned with? What grades?
We have, it looks like to me it would be a fifth grade and a second grade and a first grade. They're up over 62.
Okay. Well, I'm because I think I'm pretty sure we all received the email, whether it was read yet or not, but from a parent that was sent today at 12:30. And just a couple of quotes from that email were, how many times are you going to play with the well-being and mental state of our children? Was a question from a parent. And the second is, how is it possible that all these decisions are being made while we can't even attend a meeting to voice our opinion? It's not right that you keep pulling the rug right out from underneath these children. And to me, Carolyn, you said that it's the board's role to set these, but that's why we have the superintendent to make the recommendations, and then we follow those normally because that's the best thing to do for the students. So to not do that, to not act in the best interest of the students, is contrary to our role as board members. in the code of ethics, once again. So I have an issue with that for that reason. And Mr. Knoll didn't just pull the numbers out of the air and decide to do something willy-nilly. He made a recommendation for a reason, and I think that that's what we should stick with.
Well, it makes the most sense to stick with our district township lines, which we have in the past. I believe he is anticipating some movement with the intra-district enrollment, and I'm not sure that he has all the numbers factored in yet for the inter-district enrollment. So I anticipate some changes back and forth to keep things from being confusing in the future. I mean, it makes the most sense to stay with the township lines. If you live in Marlboro, you go to Marlboro School as your home school. Same for Lexington, same for Washington. And then once all that movement is factored in with the intra-district enrollment and the inter-district enrollment, Mr. Knoll can make the appropriate decisions as to how to balance out the class size and which ones, which schools will be used for the movement.
Well, that might make sense township line wise, but again, we're talking about what's best for the students. So rather than do what's best for the township, we need to do what's best for the students. That's what a school board does. And, you know, the intra-district thing, the thing that's a problem with that is if you are not sending your child to the school that you were assigned, then you are required to drive to and from school and transport. And that's very much a detrimental, or that's a drawback to a lot of people. So it's not
with the new proposed line with Marlboro going out from Marlboro Township. We had a lot of families that wanted their kids to go to Marlboro, but didn't have the means to pick them up and drop them off with inter-district enrollment. Hey, Joe,
you're saying.
Can you correct me if I'm wrong? In the past, hasn't the school had a policy for balancing out the numbers in the schools where I believe at one point, McCallum, those students were able to go to Marlboro Elementary to help balance out the schools when they had a lot of crowding in Lexington. Do you know of that policy and when that might have come to an end?
No, I haven't seen that since I've been here. That might have been prior to my 8 years. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's one thing, you know, we might want to look at too. I mean, the policy prior where I don't know if it was a board approved policy or if it was just, you know, something they did out of thin air, but they had kids that were outside of different townships where they gave them the option to attend another school to try to help balance out the numbers between the school buildings. Okay. And as far as social distancing goes, that might be beneficial for us to look into, try balancing out the numbers between all three schools if possible.
Is there any further discussion? Katie, please call the roll.
Katie, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Okay.
Mrs. Gerber,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphrey,
No.
Dr. Mason,
No.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 3-2.
Recommend the motion to approve the resolution naming the law firm McGowan and Markling Company LPA, McGowan and Markling, to serve as general counsel and lead advisor for the board with respect to all related matters as presented and marked Exhibit DD. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And I will read this resolution. The Marlington Local School District Board of Education, the board hereby vacates the January 13th, 2020 resolution number 40-20, February 6th, 2020 resolution 66-20, and February 20th, 2020, resolution number 81-20, and any conflicting board resolutions regarding the use of legal counsel and services. Nothing in this resolution precludes the treasurer from paying any attorney or law firm for the proper provisions of legal services provided to the board on or before May 11th, 2020. Effective May 11th, 2020, the law firm of McGowan and Markling Company, LPA, shall serve as general counsel and lead legal advisor for the board with respect to all law-related matters as directed to McGowan and Markling by the superintendent/CEO, treasurer/CFO, board president, and/or board pursuant to the March 5th, 2020 engagement letter, a copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein as Exhibit A. A copy of this resolution shall immediately be sent to McGowan and Markling by the treasurer/CFO. Effective May 11th, 2020, the prosecuting attorney of Stark County shall be the secondary lead advisor for the board with respect to all related matters as directed to the prosecuting attorney by the superintendent, treasurer, board president, board, and/or McGowan and Markling pursuant to revised code 3313.53 and applicable laws. A copy of this resolution shall immediately be sent to the prosecuting attorney by the treasurer. Effective May 11, 2020, the law firm of Bricker and Eckler, LLP, shall only serve as construction counsel and Nexus Pipeline counsel for the board with respect to construction and Nexus Pipeline related matters as directed to Bricker and Eckler by the superintendent, treasurer, board president, board, and/or McGowan and Markling pursuant to the May 11, 2020 engagement letter, a copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein as Exhibit B. A copy of this resolution shall immediately be sent to Bricker and Eckler by the treasurer. Effective May 11, 2020, attorney Robert Morrow of the law firm Lane Alton shall only serve as property valuation counsel for the board with respect to property valuation matters dealing with tax year 2019 and prior tax years as directed to Lane Alton by the superintendent, treasurer, board president, board, and/or McGowan and Markling as soon as an engagement letter from Lane Alton is approved by the board at a future board meeting. A copy of this resolution shall immediately be sent to Lane Alton by the treasurer. Effective May 11th, 2020, any and all attorney relationships, including but not limited to legal services, labor, and employment negotiations with Mary Jo Emily Slick, also known as Attorney Mary Jo Shannon Slick, and/or the Stark County Educational Service Center Governing Board, collectively ESC, is hereby terminated, and the ESC is hereby directed to immediately transition any and all legal files and outstanding legal matters to McGowan and Markling. A copy of this resolution shall immediately be sent to the ESC by the treasurer. Effective May 11, 2020, any and all attorney relationships with Peters, Carlisle, and Mark Cackus Company, LPA, is hereby terminated, and Peters, Carlisle, Markakis and Company is hereby directed to immediately transition any and all legal files and outstanding legal matters to McGowan and Markling. A copy of this resolution shall be sent to PKM by the treasurer. Effective May 11, 2020, any and all attorney relationships with the Riley Law Firm is hereby terminated, and the Riley Law Firm is hereby directed to immediately transition any and all legal files and outstanding legal matters to McGowan and Markling. A copy of this resolution shall be immediately sent to the Riley Law Firm by the treasurer. Effective May 11th, any and all attorney relationships with attorneys and law firms not identified in this resolution is hereby terminated, and such attorneys and law firms are hereby directed to immediately transition any and all legal files and outstanding legal matters to McGowan and Markling. A copy of this resolution shall be immediately sent to such attorneys and law firms by the treasurer. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Lots of questions, lots of questions. If anyone else wants to go first, because it's going to take a little while. my question is, how do we get here to Attorney Markling being the lead attorney, terminating and or boxing in all these other law firms to certain things? When you, Carolyn, when you contacted him or introduced this thought to the board, you said you wanted to get someone with a second opinion, and you touted his legal or his finance skills. I don't think, as far as I know, we've had any information from him regarding anything financial, and now suddenly he's a lead attorney. And I'd like to know why that is.
We went through the list of attorneys that we were using with Joe, and Joe chose,
Excuse me, Carolyn, who's we?
Yeah,
We is not the board. I'm not sure who you're talking about, we. You and Markling and Joe went through it?
we had a meeting, I believe that, I believe you were given the summary of the phone conference that we had, or the Zoom conference we had on Wednesday. That would have been with Attorney Markling and Joe, Katie, Josh was at the meeting, and I was at the Zoom conference. And that was in preparation of this meeting to go over the information. And Joe had asked to retain Bricker for construction. And I believe Katie asked to retain Bricker and Echo for the Nexus pipeline. So they are the attorneys for those two things. And I don't remember now if it was Joe or Katie asked to have Attorney Morrow continue on with a property valuation. So as you see, that is continued on. So Markling is not replacing those. He's replacing Mrs. Slick and the other miscellaneous attorneys we've used for other things. He will be the point of contact that will assist us keeping on the same page and be able to keep all of us on the same page and make good, solid legal decisions.
Joe, were you confused with the attorneys that you were using? Was it a problem for you to keep things straight in your mind? Was there confusion with the attorneys that you've been using so far up to now?
Ms. Humphries, was that the name? I'm sorry.
Yes.
No. The attorneys that we use for specific scenarios have worked out well. We've had good relationships with them, so there's no confusion or anything.
Right. Seems to me like the confusion entered in when Mr. Markling got involved. That there wasn't trouble before then, and suddenly we have confusion now, and we have to clear all this up. What is the problem with using the services of an attorney whose fees are included in the amount that we pay the ESC? So we're not paying additional, we're not paying $285 per hour, which is what Mr. Markling is charging. So why would we not take advantage of Mrs. Slick's great advice, her incredible work saving us money over the years? I mean, what is the problem with Mrs. Slick?
Well, regarding with the fees being included in the ESC contract, I believe you're talking about the fees that are deducted from the foundation dollars that go to the ESC. That is a package that I understand we do negotiate with the ESC. So if we're not using legal services, that is going to free up that money that were allocated to legal services with the ESC to be used for other services such as PT, OT, and different types of therapy and other services they offer. So Mrs. Slick was not free. It is going to free up money at the ESC to use for other services. The ESC is not really a law firm. I believe we need an attorney that's completely impartial, independent, objective, that fully represents the board. I can't say that I have that level of comfort with Mrs. Slick, and I I believe that Mr. Markling is a renowned lawyer. He's a founding director of McGowan and Markling. I'll read you a few things off of his
We've
off of
heard
his
all that.
resume.
Yeah, we don't need to hear an
We've heard all that.
advertisement for him.
Yeah,
That's
we don't need
ridiculous. We don't need an advertisement for him.
Yeah.
So,
And the thing,
go ahead, Karen.
Scott. No, go ahead, Scott.
So you're saying, so we're still going to pay ESC the same amount of money, and we're going to pay Mr. Markling money. We're
Okay,
not saving money anywhere. We're spending more money on this attorney. And as far as his outstanding representation of the school, the voice I heard from him was yours, Carolyn. It was his opinions. It sounded like you talking when he spoke in the one meeting I've been in with him. Now, he's come forward to offer more time, which he'll charge us for. And I really find it interesting as we're talking about finances that if you are so tone deaf to what's going on around us, you do realize that we had $400,000 cut in aid over the next 2 months. And we're in a meeting, and I got excited. I thought we're going to have a meeting, a special meeting that's going to involve with what are we going to do about that? Instead, we're in a meeting in which we're talking about spending more money we don't need to spend. It's appalling to me, actually. I mean, it's not just responsible. It's irresponsible, period. And the only comment in March that you made, Mrs. Gabrick, about Mrs. Slick is you didn't like the answer she gave you. And now you found an attorney who will give you the answers you like. And you expect the taxpayers of this district to pay for it. And in doing that, we're going to have to cut services to the students. So if we are a school board, and that school board's first priority is to the students of this school district, how does this improve the learning of the students of this school district?
Well, since
let
Scott,
me,
can I Dr. Mason brought it up, even though it's not on the agenda tonight. I see a lot of people using these cuts as a scare tactic and citing cuts to certain programs as a result. But the same people that speak of these cuts have to be aware, and I know Scott is because it was in our weekly update as far as the federal funding coming to the school. Joe, can you highlight that and clarify that for everybody out there? Because there's been a lot of talk about how these $408,000 in cuts from the state government is going to drastically affect our district. Can you clarify for everybody how that's going to be offset with the federal stimulus money, just so we can put that to rest for once?
Sure, and I might need the treasurer to help me out here, but basically what you guys are talking about are the governor's reductions that school districts are dealing with. For Marlington, it was $408,000 in the next 2 months. I think Mr. Hagan's speaking to the CARES Act, which is a federal type of stimulus, which brings Marlington about, and Katie, I think it was at $384,000.
I believe that's right.
So basically, I think Mr. Hagan's point is we kind of got cut 408,000. We got 384 coming in. So it's not a substantial hit initially here. But, you know, my concern is, and I put this in my update, that was just 2 months. You know, what's going to happen over the next year? And, you know, that does concern me greatly. You know, is there another CARES Act out there?
Well, and not all districts were hit that way. We got lucky that we got about the same amount. My buddy in a different district, it wasn't the same story. So
But
Update, just to clarify, you'd sent us, it was 304,000
394.
from
I was just looking in the
And
the
so
number.
basically what I said, it was just about a break even.
about
Which, to be honest with you, is a true blessing, because, you know, there's a lot of my colleagues out there that didn't get anywhere close to that. So that's kind of the answer to that question. But obviously my concern is what's that look like after July 1, moving forward down the road. And that's next week's meeting discussion with the 5-year forecast. So we'll talk more about that.
So that's just a 2-month thing we're talking about right there.
Yes.
So, okay, so we got a little time, but Josh, you talked about cuts to programs. There've already been 2 casualties to opening Marble, and that is the American Sign Language program is not coming, which was very disappointing to
And you're talking-
large number of people.
Courses that we had a funding issue to deal with in the beginning. So why would we propose adding more programs if we, had an issue anyway without opening Marlboro?
That was already provided for. I don't have all those exact numbers, but that was provided for, and so bringing home ec was, and so we cannot do that now because so there's already been 2 programs. The parents need to understand this, that programs are not going to go forward because we're spending money in certain ways. So we're reopening Marlboro. Now we're going to be paying for an attorney.
So when you say those were provided for, you're saying with that temporary money we got from the state, that was only for a 2-year period to use? After they stop providing that, then what? Would we just cut the course, or then we'd have to figure out how to come up with the money then, or how would you propose that?
Those courses, when those are planned, those are not like, hey, just let's try this for a year and see what happens. I mean, Mrs. Sutton, you could probably speak to that.
Okay, let's come back to the motion that's on the floor, which is the attorney resolution. I believe the finances are going to be discussed in depth on May 21st. That is on the agenda for May 21st. I'd like to speak to Dr. Mason's question or his statement in regard to ESC. I want to clarify that once again. We spent for the 2020 fiscal year, we have spent or will have spent $252,175 in just deduction monies from our foundation money. That has gone to the ESC. I have not seen how much of that goes to attorney fees. I'm not sure how that's yet allocated. I believe they're working on, Katie's working with the ESC to get that. But once we are not using Mrs. Slick, we will not be paying for the attorney fees to the ESC. We will have that money freed up to be used for other services. So it's freeing up money that we're paying out of our general fund for other services that now will become out of that deduction. And I do want to go down through just a couple of things that's very notable about Attorney Markling that I think the community would appreciate hearing. I mean, he is founder of the statewide law firm that represents public entities, officials, and employees throughout Ohio in a diverse practice. He's the motivating force behind his company's continuous presence as a leading education law firm throughout the state of Ohio. Through his leadership and guidance, Attorney Markling remains among the select few law firms to receive a Tier 1 ranking by the U.S. News and Best Lawyers. He holds the prestigious distinction of being renowned as the Ohio State Bar Association certified specialist in law and employment, in labor and employment law. He currently serves as vice chair of the Ohio State Bar Association and Labor and Employment Law Specialty Board. Attorney Markling is a member of the Ohio Council School Board Attorneys Labor Relations Roundtable. Attorney Markling is currently both the superintendent for the Middle Bass Local School District and superintendent for the North Bass Local School District, as well as former president of the Lakewood City School District Board of Education, which gives him a powerful perspective on daily issues faced by school districts, and that has proved invaluable. And I just think he comes to us from a wealth of experience, and I recommend supporting this resolution.
All those accolades, and yet he has been unresponsive to my requests to know what he's been working on, and seeing copies of those documents, saying he has none. And again, I work with attorneys. I find that very hard to believe that he has no notes. He has no communications with, I mean, you just said he had a meeting with you and Joe and Josh. I don't know if Katie was in that too.
He sent that out to the full board, Karen, and he invited you to set up a meeting with him so that you can ask him one-on-one what questions you have. I mean, and he also invited Joe and Katie to be present at that meeting. He invited Dr. Mason, and separately he invited Mrs. Stevens, although we cannot have 3 board members at that meeting. So he has reached out to you. He has not heard back from you in response to that.
I'm not
So-
interested in his words. I'm interested in his actions. And so far, his actions have not been equal to his words. So that's not the truth, what he's saying. I'm
Well,
sorry,
you're
that's how I
asking
see
him-
it.
You're asking him for correspondence that does not exist because that was prior to when he was hired and there
No,
was,
I did not ask for anything prior to when he was hired. You on March 5th. I don't know when it was that you and your husband went to visit Katie and Joe, trying to get them to sign the contract. But I don't know what gap was there. But he has something, and he sort of notes, and he claims he has no notes, and that is not possible. So that doesn't give me confidence that he is responding to me as a member of the board. I'm not quite sure why he's not responding to me as a member of the board, but he'll respond to you because he keeps sending us emails saying, Carolyn asked me to do this and Carolyn asked me to do that. So
but
that doesn't,
everything,
I don't feel that he's representing the Board of Education, Carolyn. It feels like he's representing you.
his body of work is presented in his emails. They are answered to you. They are copied to all the board members. You have his body of work in the emails. If you have a specific question that is not being answered, then you can submit the question to Joe or myself, and we'll submit that to him, and he'll respond to the full board.
I would just like to add just one thing, just for clarity. We do not pay for legal services through the ESC. That foundation deduct will occur whether we use legal services or not. That dollar amount cannot be used for OT or PT because those are extra bills that the treasurer receives outside of those foundation dollars. So the ESC world's very tricky. But I want to just make it clear, just so everybody understands that, the foundation dollars that we use, those services are within that umbrella under their core services portfolio. So whether we choose to use legal services or not, that standard deduct by law is still going to occur.
Joe, yes, I understand that. And I did speak to the ESC today, and I did confirm that that dollar amount would remain the same.
Right.
Although they said, it was my understanding of the conversation I had today that if we did not use legal services, that money would be freed up for other expenses. So,
yeah, for example, like gifted services, we already have X number of days for gifted that Mrs. Sutton kind of works through, but they basically give you what I call good guy days, and that was in that portfolio that I presented to Attorney Markling. We get X number of days that we can use, like 45 days worth of dollars that we can use for those services. So I just want to make it clear that, that game plan will remain the same. There's still going to be X number of dollars coming out of the foundation.
that's correct. And then maybe I believe then we should work to negotiate more days in regard to the special services, because it's my understanding that that's the way that would work. And I think that needs to happen. I understand that the foundation total dollars is the same. And
Right.
if we are not using the legal services, then that frees up that portion of that deduct for other expenses that would then not have to come out of our general fund where we would have to write checks for.
Well, maybe the right thing to do would to table all this and wait till we find out. You made a comment about waiting until May 21st to discuss the whole money situation. Why don't we do that? There's been a rush to do a lot of things already, not knowing the financial forecast. We're just 10 days away from that. Why don't we hear that before we do this? So I make a motion that we table this motion until we have received the information.
I checked today with ESC, and that is my understanding that if we do not use that for legal service, it is available for other services. And based on the recent email correspondence exchange that we had with some various attorneys, I believe it's imperative that we all get on the same page as soon as possible so that we're all moving forward in the same direction. I think we should move forward with the resolution, and I will be supporting the resolution.
I'm glad you brought that up, because how was it that this all came up?
How is it?
about
What?
the miscommunication and getting on the same page. It was because Mrs. Brugger was asking a question regarding Mr. Markling's billing, asking for an opinion about Mr. Markling's billing, and that's what caused this all, for you to respond to say, oh, we should just have Markling cut everybody else out. That troubles me, and that should trouble the community.
Well, I want to be clear that all this email exchange occurred over a bill that has not been sent to the district. It has not yet been received by the district. So there was a significant amount of discussion over something that has not occurred. So it is important that we get on the same page and be able to move forward. And I recommend Attorney Markling for the lead counsel.
And also regarding bills, I'm sorry, Scott, just one more thing. Regarding bills, it says in Mr. Markling's contract, the firm shall issue bills and statements to the client on a regular basis as determined by the firm. I'm not quite sure why we're letting him determine when he's sending us bills. That we need to say we want a monthly bill, because things add up. As much as he's been involved, we need to be able to see monthly what he's billing for.
Katie, is that how you set that up with your vendor? Are you dictating the bills?
Do we see that from the other lawyers as a board? Do we?
Yes, Neckler does. I saw that in their information. They said they do it monthly because they found that their clients want it monthly. That makes sense.
Monthly would be a normal business practice from my experience.
Well, I do know that during the COVID-19 situation that Attorney Markling has not been at his office. He has been out of town, away from his normal office. I would anticipate that you would receive a bill when he returns. I also anticipate that we may have some legal fee savings. If you read Brooker-Neckler's engagement letter, you will see that their fees range from $185 an hour to $575 an hour. So their fees are quite substantial in comparison to Attorney Markling's.
Yeah, one nice thing about Mrs. Slick, to be honest with you, Mrs. Gabriel, because she has negotiated some different prices with a lot of those law firms, Bricker being one of them, based on her being what I call the gatekeeper. So she's been able to work with other districts in Stark County as well to help lower some of those dollar amounts in that law firm. And also Bob Morrow is another great example. And I'm glad that we're keeping him on for the tax appeal piece, because he's actually $235 an hour. But what he does is he represents so many schools in Stark County. When he goes at one time, he might be representing like 5 or 6 different districts. So whatever cost there is for him gets divided by 5 or 6 based on the number of districts that he's representing at that meeting, which I do think is a real plus for not only Marlington, but other schools in the county that he represents as well. So I'm hoping that we're going to continue with Bob Morrow long-term, just because his body of work and the other districts he works with as well, which should help us save some dollars too.
Well, in regard to the special rate, Bricker-Neckler did quote in their engagement letter, which is attached, with $185 to $575 an hour. So they did not quote us any special rate in that engagement letter. So at some point that will have to be amended to reflect our special rate. Are there any further questions?
So
Joe,
by
will we get
losing
that
Mary Jo
special?
Slick, are we losing the special rate? I'm wondering. Joe, do you know?
I'm sorry?
By losing Mary Jo Slick, are we losing that special rate then? Is that what's happening?
We are still retaining the ESC, Katie. So we're still retaining a relationship with the ESC.
But if we're not using Mary Jo, I think that's Katie's question. If we're not using Mary Jo to assist in helping with other issues we have, being that gatekeeper, I don't know if we're going to be able to do that or not, but I'll ask that question. I mean, that is a good question. Yeah, I don't know that one.
I still haven't received an answer about how this helps the students.
I believe that if we are doing things that we know are completely according to the law and moving forward in that direction, I think that overall helps the students. there's been some things questioned that I have already, I think we will be seeing improvements in the near future is the way we run the district. And I think if we run a good district financially and legally, that overall inherently helps the students, Scott.
So we haven't been doing that.
Well, there's concern that when we ask for other attorneys' contracts and they don't exist, I mean, I believe that could cause audit problems for Katie, and I know we're trying very diligently to be doing, we want to have clean audits.
I've never had a problem with not having an engagement letter for an audit.
And you've been using, and these attorneys have been used for years by Mr. Hall and by previous Marlington administrators, and we have not, and there hasn't been trouble. These all sound like excuses to me. It sounds to me again like you have. I know that you have issues with different some of these attorneys involved. The Title IX investigation was done by Professor Neckler. I know that Mrs. Slick was involved in the lawsuit with your son, successfully defended Marlington against your son's lawsuit to try to get his job back. So it just feels like this is your agenda, Carolyn. Once again, it's your agenda for what you are doing. It's not the kids, not about the kids. And you say if we just run this all right, then everybody will be great. Again, this parent's email today. How many times are you going to play with the well-being and mental state of children? You are not listening to the parents. That's not good for a school district to not listen to the parents. That makes no sense. So you can use any excuse you want and you can say what you want. This is clearly seen for what it is. And so you just go ahead and keep doing that, but it's clearly seen for what it is.
With all due respect, I mean, I'm not trying to create an argument because obviously this is all we do as a board, it seems. But when we did talk with Mr. Markling and came out with that district compact leadership, that was, an intention to gel us all together and to do what's best for the kids. And every time that we have a board meeting and there's such a lack of respect for other board members, it just seems like we're not showing a good example to the community nor our students. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. That's what we decided to run and serve for, was to be about the kids and to be about the community. So really, arguing about all this every single time and throwing accusations against Carolyn or any other board member is just unfair and a really poor example to the community and to the students. So we really need to gel together and figure this out all together. I think what Mrs. Gabrick's just trying to do is to suggest that maybe Markling and the attorneys there would help us as a board come together cohesively and work with Joe and Katie and work together as a team, which is what we need to be doing for our students and for the community and to be better examples. But this right here is not being a good example. And you preach about being a good board member and being an effective board member, but at the end of the day, being an effective board member is leading by an example as well, and also treating people with respect. We sit in our distance learning lab where there's pillars of character on the walls, and sometimes it's just shocking and so sad that we forget how to conduct ourselves with those pillars of character at a board meeting. So, I just feel that we need to come together as a team and really remember what those words were that we talked about for the district leadership compact and move on together through there and decide what we need to do, what's best for the students, the staff, and the community. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all decided to do when we took that oath.
Right. I will never agree with doing something wrong. So my conscience tells me spending money that we don't know we have, knowing that cuts are coming down the road, spending money for an attorney that we don't need, opening a building we don't need. That's all wrong. It's not about opinion. It's not about just agreeing and getting along. It's about right and wrong. And I will never agree to do something wrong. And I'm not going to stop saying it.
I guess we're just asking more respectful when you do it. Nice. I understand that we're all not gonna, obviously we're not a perfect board. We're not always gonna agree. That's what makes a board. We all have different opinions and different values and things like that we bring to the table, which is what makes up a great board of education, a great democracy. All I'm saying is let's just be a little more respectful when we come together at these board meetings to show a good example for our students, our staff, and everyone else that's sitting here watching these meetings tonight. Because honestly, if I was watching these, I would be appalled at just the lack of respect. So I'm just asking that we can all just come together and just be a little more respectful of each other.
What was my disrespect?
When you're throwing
I was stating
your
something.
president,
No, I've watched the board president for 14 and a half years. So when you've had that history, then you can tell me if you
Oh,
see
I
something
do.
completely different. I didn't remember seeing you at the meetings. I don't remember seeing you at the meetings.
I did attend the meeting.
Okay, let's get back on task. The motion on the floor is to recommend the motion for the attorney. Katie, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
No.
Dr. Mason,
No.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 3-2.
Congratulations. We're now the only board in Stark County who 23 school boards. We're the one who has so much money we can hire our own lawyer on the outside. Rich Marlington School District. Way to go, guys.
I would just like to take a moment to say, in recognition of the Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week, the board wants to say thank you for all you do. Your sacrifices do not go unnoticed, and we especially appreciate your extra efforts during these last few months. Thank you very much, all of our staff and our teachers. The next board meeting is scheduled for May 21st, 2020, State of the Schools. That will begin at 6:30, and that will be held electronically. If everyone is still in agreement for the electronic electronic remote meetings.
Will we have public speaks at it? Other boards have gone to public speaks, virtual public speaks.
There is, I believe that policy is going to have to be revised, and I believe that Mrs. Sutton has placed that either in our Dropbox or Mrs. Sutton, do you know where you place that policy for review so that to accommodate that? Is that, could you put that one maybe in our Dropbox for us?
Sure.
And then that can be added for discussion at the next meeting. I think we have to revise that policy slightly for the remote meetings. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Back.
Is there any discussion? Ms. Kruger, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.